You're spot on. Just spot
Okay, okay.
Okay. So,
I'm ready.
Okay, well, if you're ready, then let's go ahead and start the show. It's the GameDev Breakdown Podcast. My name's Todd Mitchell. There with me is John Schreiber, looming into the camera, peering into your souls. Unless you're listening to the audio show, and then he has no power over you.
Hey, now. You don't know that.
That's true. I have
It's
no...
Speaking of powers, did you hear that joke where that guy finds a genie, and the genie said, "You have 3 wishes." He goes, "I'd like an extra wish." He goes, "Granted. You have 3 left." Anyways.
Suck it, genie. Yeah. Tonight I'm drinking some Baileys that we were gifted after we gifted some to someone else. So after my wife's holiday party that we just hosted, I was like, "Did we not give this away? I thought you bought this for the gift exchange." And she goes, "Oh, I did, and we did give it away. And like 4 people bought the exact same thing at Walmart, so we got some back." And I'm like, "Well, I'm going to drink it because I love this stuff."
Man, it's been a long time since I had Bailey's.
Bailey's is so good, and they always have the like $20, $25 gift box. They know exactly what they're doing, and everyone buys one.
That's true. I see it all over the place. You know what? Unfortunately, Bailey's is slightly ruined for me because I always think of that Mighty Boosh Old Greg
Old
thing.
Greg.
Every time I hear Bailey's.
You ever drink Bailey's from a shoe?
It's attached to your rod, mother liquor.
Well, look forward to us quoting Old Greg all night. That's going to be very exciting. Talk about our downstairs mix-up.
Oh, no. Yes, actually, are we both downstairs? I am.
Oh, we are downstairs. This is an official downstairs mix-up.
This is a downstairs mix-up. Hey, that's a great podcast name.
That's a new industry term, yeah.
The downstairs mix-up.
Welcome back to the downstairs mix-up with your hosts, Todd and John.
Unfortunately, we probably just got banned from the internet.
What's in the shoe tonight?
Oh, man. Hey,
It writes itself.
we always talk about $1 million ideas on public air. This is not good. This is not good.
This is $1 million fine idea.
Speaking of ideas, let's talk about places that don't have good ones.
It's a questionable segue at best. Do you mean to talk about where I spent the day?
Yes.
Okay, so for those that don't know, I spent the day speaking to 8th graders at a local middle school close to both of our homes here, my former home in southern Illinois. They contacted me through code.org, where I realized I still have a profile because I volunteered to help with the Hour of Code event. That's a cool event that they do for kids of all ages to introduce them to computer science and programming. And if you are already in that field, you can fill out a profile to volunteer to go help a teacher teach this stuff, help students learn it, even over Skype. You can Skype into a classroom and help out just for an hour or two, or as much as you want. So I filled one out like 2 or 3 years ago. No one contacted me because it's the Midwest and no one cares. And here we are, like Friday night, I got an email that said, "A teacher needs your help." And so I looked at this, and sure enough, someone had contacted me through my profile after 2 years and went, "Could you help us next week?" Like, so the slots started Monday. It was not a ton of turnaround time, but what you're supposed to do is give the teacher your background and talk about what you might be able to do and bounce ideas back and forth. So I would have been happy to go in, help the kids code for an hour, and nothing could be better for me. But she heard about some game development background and some app store stuff, and she goes, "Could you just come talk for an hour?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I can talk for an hour. That's no problem." And this is why my voice sounds bad. For 5 different classrooms today, I spoke for an hour about games already, so I'm very excited to record for a 6th hour today and talk about games some more.
Hopefully they compensated you.
Oh no, it's a volunteer thing. I just do it for the babies. Do it to save the children.
There's so many. Never mind. There was a lot of jokes dangling there. That's okay.
That was an old Love Line thing. They would always talk about saving the babies. They're saving the babies tonight.
That's interesting. I wonder if that's where Chris D'Elia got his idea to call his fan base babies.
Oh, maybe. That was cool. I did that. The kids were awesome. Like it was exactly what you would think. they would hear about the stuff I've done in my career, and hey, I started by making a little app for my kid, and later on I got to work with Lenovo on some VR stuff, and made some friends at Obsidian, and like it's a cool story for kids who are thinking about like, I'm just in the Midwest, but maybe I could work in software. Like, yeah, you totally could. So it's fun to try and encourage kids to look into stuff like that. And they asked great questions, and they were very excited and wanted to know if I played Fortnite and all the stuff you would think. And then I got to eat a sloppy Joe in the teacher's lounge, which was awesome, and just have the traditional school experience for a day. Coders out there, definitely check out code.org. Fill something out, maybe volunteer in your area. Like, they really need a ton of people because there's big demand for it now. They're starting to teach code earlier and earlier, so that's a lot of teachers that are nervous about this stuff and don't necessarily know what they're doing. And if you are willing to go and just help for an hour, it may just be 1 hour. I spent the whole day there. You don't have to do that. You could just go help out for 30, 40, 60 minutes, whatever, and make a difference. Think of how cool it would have been if somebody came and talked to us about this kind of stuff when we were in school.
Yeah, that's not the kind of talks that I remember at all.
Exactly. This was why it got me thinking about the kind of speakers that schools did bring in when we were in school. And I couldn't pass this up as a topic because we had some of the weirdest guest speakers, motivational speakers, scared straight style speakers that you could ever imagine. And I don't remember what year you and I started going to school together, so I'm sure we saw different things. I wanted to hear about stories that you remember, and I will share some things as well.
The one that really just is the chief among them, and there's been a few weird ones, but they kind of made a little more sense. So, me, as I was zoned out a lot in school when I was bored because I was homeschooled through grade school and didn't go to school until high school.
Yeah.
And so high school and conventional school was just deathly boring to me. I mean, it was so boring. And so I'd zone out a lot of times. And so if the speaker was kind of fitting in what we were talking about, it didn't really, I would zone out and just be in my own world for a little while if I got bored. But one that really stuck out to me, and I wish I remember the class, like you had mentioned previously before we got on air, it might have been gym class even or something like that. But they brought in this state trooper who seemed far too, what am I trying to say, excited. He seemed just thrilled to shock us and gross us out and tell us something weird. Like he wanted to do it. Like he almost got like a kick out of it.
I know exactly what you're talking about, yeah.
And I don't even remember if it was about drinking and driving or driving safety in general.
Yeah, they did both, yeah.
It might have been just a whole soup of bizarre state trooper stories, and it ended up devolving into just him basically showing us graphic pictures, making everybody say ew.
I don't mean to laugh, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
It was weird. It was almost like out of context. Like one of the ones he showed us that stuck out to me was this lady that had died, unfortunately, and God rest her soul. And it's always kind of weird when you're talking about somebody that lost their life in a tragic way. But he talked about why you didn't need to be too overweight for your car.
Oh no.
He worded it some way that wasn't quite like that, but it was basically the gist of the story. And so when she got into a wreck, her fingers broke off into the air conditioning vents.
Jesus.
It was like,
what in the world?
How does this have to do with our driver's safety? I mean, it was just like, wow. Like, okay, don't be too overweight for your compact car and get into an accident. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Drunk driving made sense. Condition made sense. Situational awareness, not paying attention to the wreck in front of you or behind you or something, that made sense. But being too overweight for your compact car, it was just...
I've never heard of such a thing in my entire life.
It was so weird. It was so weird. And you could tell he had a little bit of like a, hey, yeah, that was weird, wasn't it? And it just was, even for me, and especially if you knew me in my teenage years, it was like kind of, I wouldn't say sadistic. That's not the right word to say, but you know how that is, man. When you're a teenager, you kind of look for that shock value and stuff.
Yeah, but you're not supposed to participate in that when you're a fucking adult.
Right?
So
And so the
that's
whole
supposed to
thing
feed
was
it.
just, yeah, the whole thing was just really weird. So that one stuck out to me. The rest of them were just boring.
That story is like I said earlier, that's just spot on with what I wanted to talk about because, I mean, you and I both know very respectable police officers. I've got one in the family, and I greatly respect most police, but like also some very broken and very fucked up people are attracted to that job. It's kind of like the military. It's like the best and the worst people you could possibly meet. Like I love working with military folks most of the time, and then even they will be the first ones to tell you like we're also in here with some total nutbags. So
It's a very interesting dilemma that you bring up. Very well said, though. Man, you nail it. You meet some of the best, and you meet some of the weirdest. But anyways,
well, and the military thing's a little bit different because you can. It's not hard to find stories about judges telling people you can either go to prison or you can enlist in the military tomorrow. So of course there are going to be some people in there that aren't quite up to the standard that the rest of the people match up to. Easy for
now
me to
that's
say because I don't do either job, but really,
now that's interesting. I didn't hear. I've never not heard of such a thing. So they
never
can
heard of that.
actually issue that as a punishment, huh? Hmm.
It's
Or
it's it's not that they can really sentence you to join the military or anything like that, but I have definitely heard stories about like a judge saying, "Okay, you're guilty of this crime. You're being convicted. I will either assign you a prison sentence tomorrow, or if I find out that you have enlisted in the army or something, I will forego that sentence." So it basically leaves the person an out. And I don't know how common it is, and there's probably different laws about it, but I know it has happened in the past. So
okay.
it's
I
probably
bet.
not common.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I bet that, especially in this day and age, happens a whole lot less. Because I have a feeling we would hear that on MSNBC all day.
Right, it's the kind of thing that would upset a great number of people, and it's probably fair. Especially to the upstanding young people who want to go and serve their country and maybe don't want to try to have to watch their back in their sleep, you know?
Yeah, no kidding.
This is why I brought this topic up, because I got to thinking on the drive home, and part of this is because I have no respect for myself, so I had to sort of reflect on, like, why do these people want to hear from me? So I got to thinking, like, think of the standard that they hold people to when they're considering people for school jobs. From the principal to the janitor to the substitute teacher, like everyone has these very stringent requirements. And I thought, now if you turn that upside down, that's kind of what they look for in a guest speaker. And this one doesn't apply to like the state trooper they bring in to talk about drunk driving, but like the guy who comes into the gym and gets the microphone, and the first thing out of his mouth is like, September 14th, 1971 is when a drunk driver took the lives of my entire family. I started doing heroin. I shot some people. I got involved with a gang. And it's the same kind of guy who tells the principal, like, you guys can go sit down. If these kids get unruly, I got this, you know? I remember one like that in junior high, the exact same age of the kids I was talking to. And my friend Eugene, who I haven't heard of or thought of in the last 15 years at least, was sitting next to me, just running his mouth and would not shut up. And I was like, oh my god, this ex-gangbanger is going to kill us all. And sure enough, like in the middle of this thing, this ADHD kid next to me pops off too loud at the mouth, and this guy turns to us, and we're in the farthest corner of the bleachers in the gymnasium. He yells, "Little brother!" And like we all just simultaneously like shit our pants. It was the worst. And he just like had this cold dead stare at like the three of us. And I was like, oh god, this is it, dude. I don't know what he's gonna do next, because you know he's not gonna like murder somebody or something, but like he has definitely stopped this assembly, and like you know he's a little bit unhinged. And it just sort of set this precedent in my mind of like, this is the kind of people they have tried to like scare us straight in this lower to middle school here in southern Illinois. This is like what we've got. And we also had the police come in to talk about drunk driving and safe driving. And I think our cop who talked to us about safe driving was also our DARE officer.
Oh joy!
But I think he like shut that version of himself into a closet for the day or something. Like he just sort of flipped a switch and that was gone. And he was like making jokes about the type of people he likes to pull over and stuff. And it was like very uncomfortable. He was like, oh yeah, every Sunday or every Saturday night. No, it was Friday night. Every Friday night after the fish fry, I'll go park outside the Catholic church because Catholics drink. Catholics are wasted 24/7. And it's an all-you-can-eat buffet, man. I can get as many DUIs as people as I can haul in. It's just, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, why are you saying these things with your mouth? Like,
Wow.
like you said, they love showing the videos and talking about the horrifying things they've seen. Like, it seems to go one or two steps further than, like, we would like to help save your lives one day. Or we want you to acknowledge the gravity of the situation when you get behind the wheel. Or you think about having that drink at a party and then grabbing your keys. It's like, you guys should see the fucked up stuff I've seen. It's like,
Right? And
that's not what this is, right?
it's that conversation one-upper, you know what I mean? That tendency that people have, and it felt like at some point, it's like, why?
Right.
Why are you trying to one-up little kids about the most insane way that you've seen somebody die? Because we ain't even close, bruh.
Right.
It's so weird, man.
Yeah, it's all cops or alcoholics in recovery who narrowly avoided death in the gang. And I don't understand why we couldn't have had a nice guy who had made a career for himself doing something interesting, who grew up in the area. Like, wouldn't that have been nice? Like, oh, I went to Collinsville just like you guys did, and then I went to college at SIUE, and then I went and got a job with Boeing, and here's how well I've done for myself and my family. Like every time, like every single time, it had to be the guy who was shooting up under a bridge, and that was like earlier today.
That's a really solid point. I wonder if that still continues, or the focus has been shifting on that lately. I'd like to look into that, because you're right. That is like the cases that we had, and it was like, I don't know if that really worked for them the way that they wanted it to, because you sat there and you listened to a guy for 10 minutes talk about how awesome and how much money he had when he was a heroin dealer. And then your little kid brain is like, heroin, huh? And it's like the first time you had to think about heroin is this guy telling you about how much money he made when he was a young heroin dealer, but don't you do it.
It's true. The story never really works quite the way it's supposed to.
Not at all.
He always, like, the person always blurts out just a little bit about, like, the good life while he was still in it before things went south, and you're like, I don't know, man. If things got that bad and I had 2 weeks to come up with $100,000 or something. Like, this guy seems to have figured it out. I don't know.
I had the fastest, nicest car on the block. All the ladies liked me, and you're sitting there thinking, heroin, huh?
Right. You can see the principal and the teacher start shifting, and they're kind of uncomfortable, and maybe somebody gives them like a keep moving sign.
That's when you need Coach Hines to show up.
Yeah, I'm glad we talked about this.
Yeah, that's pretty funny, man.
I mean, tell me this. Have you ever seen an actual career day outside of a sitcom?
No.
Did anyone ever bother to have somebody who had a respectable job come in and talk to your class? I certainly never did.
No.
That's not true. I had to talk about ITT Tech several times today, which, as everyone knows now, is shut down by the feds. That's the only place anyone ever had a person in a respectable career come talk to the class. And they had a guy who did software for IBM or something like that. He came in, talked to us, inspired the hell out of us. And I never forgot that. It was super valuable, and he never did meth. It was nice. It's pretty neat. The networking program that I did at SWIC, the teachers were those guys for us. I really liked that. Like guys that were high up and held pretty decent, high up in the civilian side of the military. Ex-military, working civilian side for the networking stuff, holding high-level Cisco certifications. They were that for us, and we had some really cool conversations. That's not a bad program for a community college in the area, honestly. That if those guys still teach, I'm not sure that Mr. Clark and those guys still teach, but there you go. That was the closest thing I had to a decent career day myself. Mm-hmm. Was hanging out and talking to those guys. I brought SWIC up in my talk because I said there were 3 other schools that I've gone back to take like individual classes at, and that was one of them. And I told the kids, I was like, listen, you have just tremendous options for education around here. And the truth is about like ITT Tech and all the other places you could go that aren't as prestigious. College is what you put into it. It's 100%. You could go to Harvard and learn nothing if you're not focused. And you could go to SWIC and come out a complete badass if you have decided that you've got goals that you want to meet. And that was something that seemed to really resonate with at least the teachers and the staff members who came through. And I think the kids sort of thought about that like, yeah, I guess that's true. Like we don't have these like famous universities or anything, but we have very good schools. And if you're looking to get a degree and get some stuff done, awesome, go do it.
Yeah, and in this day and age too, it's like that the degree mills. I don't even feel comfortable calling them colleges anymore. And it's and that term has gotten like what am I trying to say? It's starting to blanket even the larger universities that you've brought up. Just that degree mill, get them in, get them out, kind of a thing. It's just like, yeah, it almost doesn't matter anymore where you went to school. It doesn't seem like it matters nearly as much anymore. Maybe 20 years ago, but now it's just like they're getting deadbeats left and right. Mm-hmm. So they want somebody that has a track record, a proven track record. And that education is slowly starting to become, it's important. I'm not trying to downplay it, but it's slowly starting to become kind of a secondary factor. They want to see more so, can you hold a job and, are you a pleasant person?
Yeah. Yeah. Are you employable? Yes, that's very important. For
Seriously.
all you young folks, don't go in and grill them about benefits and explain to them that you're not comfortable working with certain types of people. And don't be that person. Because what I tell people all the time, what I would want to see in an interview, I am not in charge of staffing anywhere at this time, but anytime I've been involved in helping choose staff members, it's been very simple. I want to hear from people who are motivated, who aren't like, well, my previous job that I really liked and wish I could go back to. Like, I don't want to hear a lot of that shit. And then in the case of programming, I do want to hear, here's what I do in my off time, and I want to hear about a little bit of stuff that you do. I don't care if you're interviewing for a programming job in the industrial sector and you make games on the weekend, or if it's the opposite. I don't care. Like, you work on database management at home for fun. Like, I want to hear that you're doing this with or without me. I would vote for that person every time.
Yeah, that's a solid point. That is a solid point.
It's not this shit about, like, I'll take this job if you allow me several hours of independent research time on my own on your dime and stuff. Like, you're never going to survive this. Like, this is not going to be for you.
No kidding.
No. I don't know how we got on that.
Well, it kind of happened. Just talking about the value of education, how it's shifting a little bit, and more so you need to find a way to show your work ethic. And I think that whether or not people realize that the hobbies that you have and how you can talk about it. I can't tell you how many interviews have been in that actually came up and ended up being a pretty strong point.
Yeah.
Like you just mentioned in the interview, and I kind of one of my teachers, I think it was Mr. Clark, mentioned that. He goes, "Yeah, your hobbies." He goes, "Don't be afraid to talk about those things."
Yeah.
And I really liked that advice. It went a long way because it really helped the interview. Not only did it kind of keep it friendly and nice and smooth and a little more relaxed, but it also, like you said, gives you some insight in, well, is this a driven person? You can tell by what someone tells you they do at their free time. If they say, oh, yeah, Netflix, and I'm a foodie,
Right.
You're like, okay, all right.
You got 20,000 followers on Instagram. They listen to me talk about food. Yeah. Don't care.
Yeah, precisely.
I like to travel a lot. I'm gone a lot.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably not good.
No. Because are you going to be at your desk?
Right, exactly. Should we talk about our show topic?
Let's do it, man. I was trying to think of like a segue there that was kind of funny, and I couldn't do anything.
If you've got one, throw it at me. It's
I
fine
really
either
could
way.
because it's kind of just different. So I guess we just go into it.
Speaking of blood, gore, and violence,
Yes.
no, we for a little while we've talked about doing a show about controversial games, what makes them tick, what makes the studios behind them tick, how they make the players tick, and we're gonna pick out a couple to pick on individually. So I'm excited about that. Well, I'm not necessarily excited about talking about sort of sketchy topics, but I think it's going to be interesting to hear about what makes one stand out to you. I'll tell you what makes one stand out to me, and we'll see where we meet in the middle.
Absolutely. I would have to say that well, although my picks are cliche, I have intimate contact with them because I remember vividly when they came out and the impact that it had on my world.
Yeah.
The first one I want to mention is completely obvious because I think it impacted a lot of people, which was Mortal Kombat. And I had to actually sneak play that for a while. I don't even remember how I obtained a copy of it without my mom fully knowing it. My dad may have had something to do with that. And yeah, mind you, my parents, they didn't never separated or anything like that. We all lived in the same household.
Yeah.
But dad was pretty solid about about hooking a brother up sometimes. And
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat was one of them. And what was interesting is that everybody was harping on the ultra violent aspect of it. But what was interesting was why it was controversial in my home was because you had to hit women if you had to fight a female character.
It's true. I mean, that's fair.
And my mom wanted nothing to do with it. I'm sure that if she was still with us today, she would probably, even though I'm 32, be mad at my dad for having gotten me Mortal Kombat.
It's true.
Which I find funny, but I want to quickly go into this one because this one actually did kind of mess me up a little bit. And that's the year Soldier of Fortune came out. And this is the good old days when you went to the store. There was a computer store in the mall, man. Do you remember what it was called? You of all people would remember.
There were several. There was Babbage's.
That's it.
Babbage's. All right. That was a good one, yeah.
Babbage's, and I would go to Babbage's, and I would go in there and just look at the boxes and then read the description, and that's how I determined what game I wanted. I got some great games out of that doing that. That's how I discovered Command and Conquer.
Oh yeah.
But one of them was Soldier of Fortune. And so, my parents, for some reason, violence wasn't censored in my house. Magic, the woman stuff, that was censored. Violence, no big deal. What are you watching, kid? Terminator 1? Fine. What are you watching, kid? I can't think of any. That goes to show you how many of those fantasy dragon mystical movies I've ever seen because I just wasn't allowed to.
But if they're all dudes and they're shooting at each other, it's cool.
Yeah, that's fine. Oh, they got arms and legs flying around. I don't want to see it, but you can watch it.
Have fun.
But Soldier of Fortune I got, and man, that game freaked me out because that ghoul engine on there, what was it, like 23 different pieces of exploding body parts? And
you showed this to me, like, yeah, the shattering, fragmenting body parts, and which at the time, what year was this?
I want to say it was 1998. Let me double check the release year.
Oh man, I had no idea it was that far back. Like, yeah, that would have been pretty surprising for most people, I think.
I think it was 1998, and I had no idea. Like if I remember correctly, the box didn't allude to it being ultra violent.
Yeah.
Well, 2000.
That was a screw up. Yeah. Yeah. It did have like
2000.
It did have fairly aggressive, like pretty good graphics. So 2000 seems pretty right on.
Wow, it sold 100,000 copies. I was one of them.
It's not that many, really.
No, not at all. But people seem to have liked it. Ooh, that's when Jedi Knight and stuff was out. Ooh. But anyways,
that's what I was playing.
Man, that was such a good game. Remember that online play for that?
No, I think I played offline.
Man, they had an online play. I don't remember the Microsoft service back then. That's when I played Rainbow Six too. That was fantastic.
Oh yeah,
tons of time. But yeah, it was the Ghoul game engine that they used, and 26 zones. Like, so the head would explode in like 4 or so pieces, and like guts. You shoot a guy and they're trying to hold their guts in, and it was wild, man. And that
Oh,
game floored me. And I remember it being quite controversial. My mom had no idea that I had it. I'm sure that was a trip to the store that my dad hooked me up with.
yeah.
But what I found interesting was when I was researching this game a couple weeks ago, I think, or last week when we were talking about this show initially, I didn't realize that they made a completely censored version of it, and also in the violent version of it, you can actually beat the entire game, or not, maybe not beat it, but you can complete levels and not kill anybody. I didn't know that.
Kind of an early Undertale for you.
Right, right, and you could shoot the gun out of the guy's hand, and they would run away.
Oh, the old style cowboy mode.
Yeah, and I had no idea all these years that you could do that, and I was like, man, that is some wild, wild stuff. But yeah, for that day and age, man, for a long, long time, I hadn't played a game with that level of gore. And to be honest with you, maybe Quake. When did Quake start rolling around?
Oh, Quake was earlier than that. Hey Google, what year did Quake come out?
1996.
Okay.
It's 96. Now, I don't remember exactly how violent that first one is. I remember Quake 2 being exceptionally violent.
I think it's pretty full on. Yeah. And I only played that for the first time here in the last 5 years or so.
Quake?
Yeah. It just sort of skipped me. I didn't get around to it.
Did you know if you took your original Quake disc for the original game, the first one, and put it in a CD player and play the Trent Reznor soundtrack?
I think I heard something about that, and that was such a nice thing about games during that time period, because a lot of PlayStation games did this too. One of my favorite albums of all time to this day is the Street Skater soundtrack from PlayStation 1. You just shove that bad boy in the CD player, and you are all set for 45 minutes or so.
That's so cool. But yeah, I remember the controversy briefly for Soldier of Fortune, and try to keep it on track there.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it directly affecting me, and me actually, even though being a young gamer, see, Quake 2 is even earlier than Soldier of Fortune, so there must have been something unique about the violence in Soldier of Fortune.
Mm-hmm.
But even as a young gamer, it was like, I still remember it, like, it was funny. I was like, oh no, that's kind of justified. I remember thinking that about that game. I was like, yeah, you know what, that's actually kind of justified. There was just something about that. The way the violence was depicted in that game was just absolutely ruthless.
Yeah. And I think maybe that's going to be a theme as we discuss these, is sort of the first time we see something, it sticks with you, and that game ends up sticking with you. And Mortal Kombat has done this really repeatedly throughout game development history. The first one was shocking because it was filmed with real actors, and it was very violent and had really weird stuff in it. Mortal Kombat 2, Mortal Kombat 3 all did the same thing. They introduced new stuff that we hadn't seen, even though the graphics hadn't changed too awful much. Now the new ones, remember that mobile game, the Mortal Kombat game we were playing on the phones for a while? And that had the same style as like the newer Mortal Kombat games, and so it's like super realistic 3D characters, and we're talking like bones shattering and seeing the X-ray stuff happen to people, and just super sketchy fatalities and stuff. They find a way to show us new things, and I think seeing new things has a profound impact on our minds. I think the first time we run into a game like that, it sticks with us, and that sort of becomes like controversy in our mind. And I think those are the ones that turn out to make the news headlines, because it does the same thing to everyone, even if it's just something they see in a commercial, or they walk by an arcade and see a kid playing it. They go, oh my God, what have we come to? You know?
Yeah, for real.
The first one I thought of when we talked about this was Carmageddon. And not because it had some super negative impact on me, but it certainly had a negative impact on a lot of people. And Carmageddon, for those who don't know, was a racing game that came out this was around that same time period, late 90s or like around 2000.
Right here it says 97.
97, so that sounds exactly right. You would race other 3D cars in this open world map sort of situation, and you would get points and rewards and stuff for disabling other cars. You could win the race, which was obviously not as popular, and then you would get points for killing pedestrians with your car. okay, fine. So that was a thing, and these exploding pedestrians and stuff. It was pretty graphic, and I thought, okay, that's surprising. Like, I didn't really expect that when I loaded up this game. I knew it was going to be dark and edgy, but I didn't
Yeah.
necessarily know you were going to run over people and they would explode and you would get a time extension. What I'm not sure that I knew back then was when I looked this game up to research it for our discussion, it said you could win a race if you killed every pedestrian. And I don't know, I don't remember now, because maybe this will make me sound stupid, but that might have been a special mode that certain events were that you had to finish to proceed or something. I didn't remember a standard race being winnable by killing all the pedestrians on the map. The technology for this game was actually pretty good. Like the map was pretty neat and the driving was decent. It turned out to be sort of a pretty fun playing experience for me at least. And since that time, they've re-released those games on mobile phones and the whole thing. They've put out other versions you can download in like Steam and stuff like that. I understood the controversy, but at the same time, it was like you would play it, and it was like I'm not really feeling anything from this. This is not really impacting me in any super negative way. But at the same time, it's like you knew you were doing a much different activity than normal, and they did this on purpose because several other games like this were coming out at the exact same time, and they went, "We're going to make ours different by putting in pedestrians and a point system for that, and we'll be the one that rewards you for killing pedestrians." Okay, fine.
I'm actually looking at a little bit while you're talking about it. I don't remember paying much attention to this game, and I'm going to tell you right now while I'm looking at this video of it, what's the most disturbing to me is the driver cam in the top corner. God, that's awful. And it's really not that bad. It's just like, but the animations are extremely jarring and bizarre.
I didn't watch any gameplay of this when we were getting ready for this. Let me pull something up and get a little sense of what you're talking about here.
On the top left of the screen, you'll see like they've got like a camera on your driver or whatever, and he or she reacts to the what's going on. And boy, it's really weird. Like they make like happy weird faces when you smash a person. And
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what you mean. I remember this now. Yeah, so it's like real, like a real actor, and it shows his reaction to the things. Okay, so I'll give you this point. That does make sort of a different connection to this activity that you're doing because you're seeing a real person reacting to running a pedestrian over and slaughtering them.
yeah.
And this player face cam thing was sort of a staple of games around this time. Doom was big for this, and several other shooters had this sort of thing going on. I always thought as the player starts getting bloodied up and all messed up and stuff, like, that did kind of have an impact on me. And I don't know if that makes me a wuss or not, but it makes it a little more real for you, and it's like, oh, that's happening to me, and I don't like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Like, I never felt comfortable beating a level on Wolfenstein or something like that when you're all bloodied up. Like, I felt like it didn't really mean you won.
Right, yeah, it's like I won, but at what cost?
Yeah,
It just makes it a little more real.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think maybe this one did stand out to me as like, man, this makes like it's weird because it's fun. Like you're still having fun, but you're like, this also makes me feel weird. That does make it memorable, but maybe not in the best way.
Yeah, Carmageddon. I knew about it. I never did mess with it.
They are still making stuff. They're still doing like they just started doing Kickstarters and stuff for new games, and
Same
they're
devs?
I think so. Like they have yet to let this go.
Interesting.
And really there were other versions of this you could play too, like the Road Rash games or something. They still try to do knockoffs of that.
I spent a ton of time playing Road Rash, man.
I only played a little bit of Road Rash, so that may have been why this one took up a little more of my time. But the rise of the violent racer. What a silly idea, right? Like, oh, racing games, but violent.
The rise of the violent racer. I really like that. Yeah.
And I'm watching one now, and and Twisted Metal, I guess, sort of falls into this category too. It's like racing for the kill.
Yeah. Twisted Metal was the one I spent a ton of time playing, but I don't remember that being too violent and too controversial. It was just ugly, you know?
It was dark, and had a lot of like big scale like destruction and stuff, knock over the Eiffel Tower and set it on fire and stuff. I don't think it was so. No, now I'm watching an old woman with a walker. Oh yeah, she just got slaughtered. Okay, so they really don't pull any punches with this one.
You're watching the guy in the red car.
Yeah, that made me feel weird.
That's the same video.
Carmageddon, I'm gonna go full controversy on this one. Like that's sketchy.
That was pretty brutal, man. That kind of made me feel a little bit like Soldier of Fortune.
Right, yeah. So now I think we've sort of matched that weird feeling. And again, I think it has something to do with coming across this feeling that makes you sort of question yourself a little bit for the first time. It's like, maybe this is weird that I'm doing this. I don't know. So that was my first pick in a nutshell for you.
What else you got brewing on there? Let's see.
My other one is not nearly as brutal, but it's, I don't know if you ever played this. It's called Sissy Fight 2000. And this literally was a game that started around the year 2000, and it's a browser-based, online, turn-based RPG fight. And the characters are all literally schoolgirls. And you make your own schoolgirl and customize her and literally play the game by bullying other players. It was a different time. But you make your own character and you do stuff like pull hair and scratch and like punch in the face. And the winner is the other one who basically bullies the other characters into submission. And it's a little bit weird.
You could not make this game again. And
oh yeah. That was why this pick was this pick, because the other, like, Carmageddon is obviously like, it is what it is, but this one is unique in that you could never get away with this now. And they're trying. The developers of this game have put their code up on GitHub, so you can look at the original Sissy Fight 2000 code. They've launched their own Kickstarter, because that's what you do. And they want to make like a new version of this game, and it's like, what do you hope to accomplish other than getting banned from the internet completely?
I'm thinking it might have lost traction. I don't see much going on.
I think it did, and it's because it's just not going to hit audiences the same way. This, you have to think about it in the context of, we were either freshmen or sophomores in high school. I learned about this in my programming class at Collinsville High School because some guy went, "Oh, have you seen this? This is going to blow your mind." And he was like trying to be the edgelord guy in the back of the class. He's like, "Wait till you see this. This is awesome." And he's playing this game called Sissy Fight. And I'm like, this is dumb. But I did start playing it with him just to see what all the fuss was. And sure enough, it was something that, like you said, you could not do that now.
There's no way. Not to jump back on you real quick, but I am looking at Soldier of Fortune footage here, and I'm remembering what the most disturbing point of this and why it stuck out against other games. And it's the begging of one's life, and then you could still mercilessly slaughter them.
Oh boy.
That was it's kind of messing with me again. I'm having like flashbacks right now looking at this because I'm remembering what after you blow a guy's hand off and he's crawling around on the ground and he's screaming and you can execute him. I think that's kind of what the deal was there. Anyways.
Yeah, I know. That was part of what set people off with the game Hatred as well.
Oh man, that game.
That was like, I'm gonna say this. That game was the product of a bunch of complete assholes trying to max out the complete asshole meter. And they couldn't have done it much better. Like, they did a fine job of pissing off the entire internet.
You know, because like it even kind of made me go, okay, we gotta. That was a bit much. It's just in this day and age.
Right.
It's only $6. I might get it. No, I'm just kidding.
Is it out? Did it get released?
It's on Steam. It was okay here. I followed this for a little bit, and I'm actually surprised I didn't pick this to talk about because I was kind of following this for a little bit. Yeah. And so it had problems just through the trailer. That's how I first saw it. The trailer was huge controversy. I mean, everybody in my newsfeed on Facebook was sharing about it. And the trailer just blew me away, and I thought, man, the way you get the thing that really sent me over the edge was the way you get health on this game. Like, there's no pickups. Yeah. You had to like execute a civilian in a specific way, and like that to me is what really sent it to a place of I I don't know, man. Just being real, it was just really sadistic. And in some of the ways you kill those people, it was just. I mean, I played violent games clearly, and I'm all for freedom of speech, but that was to me like a whole nother level. So then Steam pulled it, and then apparently it's back on here. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. You can get it for $6.
I remember Epic saying our logo is not to appear anywhere in the production of this game, and
Oh,
the
it was done on Epic, this engine.
the Unreal Engine, yeah, and they initially had an Unreal Engine splash screen on it, which they said you will take this out, and the studio kind of balked at that and went, I don't understand what the problem is. They kind of had that reaction to everything. Everything
They
was kind
did.
of like, I don't understand why you're saying this, and like games have violence, man, and I don't understand. Even though they were like Swiss or something,
Polish.
Polish. Okay,
I believe I'm looking at. I was just really getting ready to bring that up because they're Polish and Polish people. Man, there's some really bizarre death metal bands that are Polish that are just weird, man. And I believe these guys are Polish. I'm looking. The reason I'm not looking at you is I'm looking at this.
yeah, some
I
some
think they're.
cultural differences there.
I think they're Polish. Polish people, man. They just. I can't say all of them, of course.
Right.
But man, they like some just they like yeah, they're Polish. Yeah. They just they like to push. So this Polish death metal band I didn't mean to go see. They just happened to be there. They were the kind that would like light a Bible on fire and rip it in half on stage and throw it at you.
So a bunch of edge lords.
That's Poland. And then that's the taste that Poland has left in my mouth and throughout the decades. And here
And I
you
mean,
go
it's
again.
it's okay to point that out. It's basically just a little bit of a cultural movement there that we're seeing the product of. And in this case, where they want to sell games to our teenagers, it's not really okay because that's too much of a difference, and that's not really acceptable here because. Violence on that level is something we occasionally have to deal with here, and I think we have to be realistic and very careful in how we present it because
Yeah.
obviously, I mean, you can think about this the same way you would think about movies or TV shows or anything. Are there movies and TV shows where we accept a certain amount of violence? Absolutely. Look at The Walking Dead, look at the Jason Bourne movies, whatever you want to pick out. But at the same time, if someone creates a movie that is nothing but you following a person with no story, no context, no motivation, who just starts a mass shooting, and it glorifies that person, we're going to have a fucking issue with that, and we're going to
Yes.
kick that guy's ass. So,
Yes.
and I think that's exactly where we need to be as a society, and we need to say we're not interested right now in your story about like, well, if it's not known to cause violence in people, or if it's not known to have certain studies show this and that, we need to just say, hey, this fucking isn't okay. All right, it's not like we're gonna make a law about it necessarily, but Steam is not going to give you a page on their server.
Yep.
Done and done.
And I think, not to cut you off, but I think you made an excellent point there where you were talking about there's a difference between when you play a game and it has the beaches of Normandy on it,
Right.
and then one where you're a psychotic neckbeard that snaps one day and starts killing innocent people.
Right.
They're both, let's say they're both equally violent. And as a matter of fact, Hatred is a top-down twin stick shooter kind of style game.
Yeah.
Whereas something like a Medal of Honor is a first person shooter type of a game. So like the violence might seem more real in the first person shooter, but again, it's just like, what's the context here? Because that's one of the reasons, frankly, that I can never consider myself a diehard GTA fan.
Mm-hmm.
It always gave me a little bit of that vibe,
Yeah.
Especially the third one. As it progressed, it started to actually kind of try to form a storyline.
Yeah.
But that third one, as much as I played the heck out of it, but it's still like thinking back on it, it's never really sat well with me for that same reason. It's just something about that is just, I don't know, man. It's just different. It's different than just playing a violent video game and then playing one where you're basically a psychopath, because I don't know that it's necessarily healthy to let people do that in the privacy of their home. It's just,
I mean, of course not, is what I would say.
or maybe it is, though. You know what I mean? Like, is it an outlet for some of those people? But at the same time, never mind, because usually it amounts to them just exercising their demons.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And GTA is an interesting case because it's a wide open sandbox where there are stories for you to hear and there are things for you to follow, and some of the messages are actually kind of nice. And then there's also the kind of stuff that the Daily Wire picks up, which is just a teenager who decided he was going to try to kill as many police as possible in this game. And that's obviously not the only game where you can do such a thing, but he chose to use it in such a way that looks very, very bad. And at the same time, like, you see that potential in that game, and it probably makes you feel a little bit weird. Like, it's like, I could be a complete monster in this thing. And I'm not saying that is going to impact your brain negatively necessarily. I think in the case of like hatred and some of these other things, I think they do. And I think that over the long haul, we're going to have to eventually acknowledge that, like, there is potential for damage for people who are unwell in the first place. So those of us who are healthy have sort of those mental safeguards against that, and then people who are not healthy do not. Absolutely do not. We've already seen that with several instances of public violence and things like that. There usually is some kind of link, and it's not maybe a 50% cause, but it may be a 10% cause, and we have to take that seriously.
Well, yeah. I mean, what if that 10%'s, what if they're at 90 and that's the 10%?
Right. Exactly. That's right. And it's a different parallel, but it's the same kind of problem we have when the the Entertainment Software Alliance goes, loot boxes definitely aren't a problem, and they're not willing to go, yeah, they're a little bit of a problem, but they're not as much of a problem as you're saying. It's also kind of the way the NRA likes to argue, like, no gun has ever done a negative thing in its existence, when we know that some have. It's the I'm not 1% wrong argument, and that's always wrong.
Yeah.
And so we can't really defend that. We can't say that, like, no video game is violent, no video game has ever contributed to whatever. I don't care who makes that case. They're wrong every time. Every time.
It's like, what's coming to mind is Columbine and Doom. And I think one of the things here is that Doom was about fighting hell and trying to save mankind. And they modified it to build their school as a level and then run it endlessly to kind of train themselves on how they were going to wipe people out. So in that circumstance, that's the misuse of the software. I believe that id Software, clearly they made it through the other side. They're still making Doom games. But I think they were definitely safe in that. And if I was anywhere a part of that case or that issue, I would hope that was what was brought up. Listen, the software wasn't designed to be a school shooter simulator. But then you go and you look and you see something like Hatred, and you're like, this is a school shooter simulator, literally trying to be one. So that is where I think that clear line and that violent, controversial video game stuff has to be drawn. That's like, let's just change it a little bit. Like if you made a date rape video game, which they do have, by the way, that is on Steam.
Oh, Jesus.
Let me tell you the name of it.
It's getting so hard to defend Steam. I'll be honest.
Dude, Steam is just a crapshoot. When it comes to the amateur content, here I'll send you this game, and you're gonna look at this, and it's called House Party. It's on Steam. There was a big controversy about it. It's funny that as we get to talking about these things, like, I'm starting to realize there's different games I should have brought up.
Oh yeah, I'm doing the same thing. Can I bring up an interesting point about Steam?
Yes.
The same people who are complaining about the quote-unquote Nazis on Steam and the offensive content and everything, those are the exact same people who are bitching about the new revenue-sharing breakdown. They go, oh, this favors large studios, and this favors major publishers and stuff like that. Well, do you think it's the large studios and large publishers that are making the super offensive games, or do you think those are jackasses in their basement? So which side do we want to play on, is my question.
Yeah.
And I hate to do this to id Software as well, but I'm going to do it. I think they've caught a bad rap for a lot of things, but they haven't been perfect. You can't make this case about Doom contributed in no way to Columbine because Doom impacts reality in no way, while at the exact same time, they were repurposing the Doom engine for the military to use to train for the Middle East.
Yeah.
So do we believe it impacts reality or do we not?
It definitely does to some degree. There
I
was
just
a
want consistency in our arguments that we make.
Yeah, no, I'm hearing you. It definitely does to some degree. It definitely does to some degree. It trains your brain in a way that makes you very quick to decide. There's an interesting TED talk about this I'll send you to where they talk about the gamer brain and it shows you the value of occasional video game playing and competitive first person shooter specifically,
Yeah.
and that your brain, you're actually training your brain to do a series of very specific problem solving tasks while there's all this other stuff going on and all this other information you have to take in. And they said that people that profess to playing first-person shooters regularly, i.e. me and you, can pass these tests with flying colors. And they do these tests live, and you'll pass them. I did. And most of the audience couldn't. And they said, so should we say that games are bad? Now, if you take what she's saying but you kind of put that spin on it to where you're essentially saying, well, this kind of made you on your way to being a hitman. You know what I mean? Like you can put that spin on it. So I can see that for sure. Not to jump back to this house party game, but let me give you an idea real fast. I sent the link to you for you to look at, but you can get to a point in there where you blackmail a character into giving you oral sex, and it has all the genitalia on there and everything.
No.
I haven't seen it. I've just read a breakdown on it because they almost pulled it from Steam too, and that's the kind of game it is.
That's so bad. Oh my god.
Yeah, that one didn't get pulled. Hatred got pulled. This did not get pulled.
That's.
And it's overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam, by the way.
Okay, now I remember seeing stuff about this. Why do you need to? Here's my issue. Let's not talk about the players for a minute. Let's talk about the developers who want to look at this day after day, work on it for month after month. Those people I'm worried about. I sincerely am. The other game I was going to talk about and throw a little bit of an honorable mention to was another Rise of, but it was the Rise of the Celebrity Beatdown game. The ones where you could pick between David Hasselhoff and Britney Spears and beat the shit out of them until they were bloody and all fucked up. Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to draw this person this way? Why do you want to create this and test this for 9 hours? Why do you want to tell your family about this at Thanksgiving that you created this thing and that's your job? I'm as worried about that person as I am anyone else.
It's just weird, right? Because somebody had to sit there and program dong mechanics to pull off some of the stuff they have in that house party game, and it's just what in the world? I made
a game for kids about the alphabet, and I don't even like the alphabet anymore. I don't understand why you want to spend that kind of time. And I say this all the time. Whatever you decide your game is going to be about, you better like that shit. You're going to spend a lot of time with that material. It's true.
It's hilarious, man. It's a solid point. Well, we've been going at this for about an hour. I think we got a lot of content here, and man, I think we can just keep going. What an interesting. That took an interesting twist.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go see if My Time in Portia is on sale yet.
That one I don't know about.
Oh, that's 3D Stardew Valley.
Oh yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah,
we were talking controversy, and so I took that title a completely different way.
I know, but I just wanted to switch subjects to something heartwarming and not full of just enjoyable.
Not dirty, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's officially released. It's a Team 17 publisher. Gosh, man, they've been publishing some really awesome games lately.
Well, it looks like it's released to early access.
Oh, is it still early? Oh, it's still early access.
That's what I'm seeing on my screen. If I'm wrong, tell me.
No, I see that now. I thought it was officially released. But this is essentially 3D Stardew Valley. I've been eyeballing it. I want to get it on a good sale soon.
It looks nice. It looks like a good time.
Yeah, there you go. To switch subjects a little bit, if you want to play something you can play with your kids, check out My Time in Portia.
Yeah, still something very cool is House Flipper. I still love House Flipper.
Yeah, I remember you saying that was cool.
I want to see if they've put out any more updates or if it's maybe left early access or anything. It looks like it has left early access.
It looks official to me.
It's got DLC you can download free, which is nice. Yeah, this looks good. They're doing seasonal updates. I love this game. Buy a house, update it, do whatever you want to it, or finish odd jobs for other homes, and it's just nice and wholesome, and it's a much better way. See, as weird as the controversial games are, I played this before our house got built, and there were legitimately a few things that happened while our house was being built that I recognized and looked at because of this game. And what more could you ask for from a video game? Like, that's about the height of gaming achievement, is to notice some stuff and address it in your actual home that's being built. Like, that was awesome.
If those guys did their research, then.
They did, and I don't know where these guys are from, but it's not anywhere close, I don't think.
Gotcha.
Playway SA. And I remember thinking that because the translations in the game are not quite... Not only are the translations a little bit off, but things that appear in the homes are not necessarily things that we put in the homes. That, like, they have much different use of, like, radiators and air conditioners and stuff. And they put their... It was something like the laundry machine was always in the bathroom or something. It's just things that, like, you don't see around here.
Gotcha.
Such a cool game, though. It's up to $20, so it's a little more than I paid for it, but I would call that worth it. I hope that they release this on the Xbox, too.
I bet you that seems like something they would do.
I would maybe play it on the Xbox.
That seems like something they would do.
So yeah, like you said, we're actually over time, and I'll probably cut a little bit out and maybe put it on Instagram TV, which it outperforms YouTube for us, actually. It's pretty popular. So
that's a good sign.
Yeah. So that's our chit chat about it's sort of what makes controversial games tick. I want to hear from anybody who wants to add to this, because I know much different games will occur to different people, and tell us why these games stick out to you, whether it's something that you are willing to do with your development efforts, or something you think should be done at all. I'm very interested in other opinions about this stuff. So thank you for digging through this sort of difficult topic with me tonight.
Yeah, I mean, no problem. It kind of hit close to home, because I remember when, we have a unique generation and a unique perspective when it comes to games, when that 3D violence was kind of fresh, and nowadays it's just like kids would be surprised what was considered controversial on our days. And then we did ended up hitting a little more on the new controversies, which seemed to me like we've painted a much grosser picture.
Yeah.
by looking at some of the newer games.
Yeah, we've seen very interesting things develop since the 90s, and we're not done. VR is going to get weird, and then there's going to be something else that just projects actual graphics into your real home without the headset, and that's going to get weird, and it's just going to go on and on.
Oh, it's going to be super weird, man. I mean, VR is already weird. You've seen those VR chats? Have you seen that?
I've seen the business side of VR chats. I can only imagine what they're doing with it outside that realm.
Go look up Go Later tonight if you want something to do just to look at for a second. There's like VR chat rooms, and God help the soul that goes there. That is weird.
I can imagine. So that's more fun talk for a different time. If you enjoy the Game Dev Breakdown podcast and you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. We are everywhere that you would find a podcast. So do that and come along for the ride with us. And check us out at CodeWritePlay.com, where we will sort of gather all of our different social media content and our articles and our show notes, and you can find all sorts of cool stuff. And reach out to us, let us know what's going on, what you think about the show, and help us by leaving a nice rating or review on iTunes. Tell a friend. And we'll just keep bringing the fun stuff to you. So thank you, John.
No problem, boss.
And we'll talk to you guys again next week.